Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Dr. Diane Elmore Bourbon, Policy Program Director at the National Center for Child Traumatic Stress. This is the third in our series of National Child Traumatic Stress Network podcasts focused on trauma-informed care for unaccompanied immigrant youth. Today we'll be joined by colleagues from the Children and Youth Cabinet in Providence, Rhode Island. I'd like to turn it over to Matt Billings to introduce their work.
Hello. My name is Matt Billings, and I'm the Deputy Director at the Children and Youth Cabinet. I'm incredibly excited to welcome you all to Rhode Island, and even more excited to have you all hear from the people who are joining us today. We'll be discussing a very important subject to the CYC and issues that are even more important to the people you are going to hear from. We are in the midst of an immigration crisis, a crisis that isn't about the immigrants themselves, but the United States' inability to support the needs of our newest residents. We will be welcoming more and more families from Mexico, Central America, and South America in the future. Forced political migration, climate change, and the desire for a safer and better life is an unprecedented opportunity for the United States. How do we really begin to support an immigrant population that is forced into hiding? How do we provide supports that are specifically designed and customized for families that deserve the very best medical, social, and behavioral health supports that we have to offer? We have to get really good at this right now. We have to get good at treating the symptoms of trauma that so many bring with them on their journey to the United States. We need a comprehensive playbook. We've started to build one in Providence, and we're going to share that with you today. You'll hear from voices that know, a mother, an unaccompanied immigrant youth, and someone who is in the middle of the work on a daily basis. Before we get there, the director of the Children and Youth Cabinet, Rebecca Box, is going to talk about the organization that serves as the hub for this work, as well as several other important projects in the city of Providence and the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, this is Rebecca Box. And as Matt mentioned, I am the director of the Children and Youth Cabinet, often referred to as the CYC. We're coming to you today from Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country, but we're very proud, and if any of you have been here, you'll know about our beautiful beaches, our fantastic restaurants, and the best frozen lemonade in the country. But as many communities, both rural, suburban, and urban across the country, we are also facing a lot of shifting demographics. Over the past several decades, we have seen waves of immigrants here in Rhode Island. At present, about 60% of our school-age population in our urban centers here are Latino, first and second generation immigrant students. We're also the home to hundreds of youth annually who cross the southern border in immigration from their home countries without a caretaker or parent. We refer to those children and youth as unaccompanied immigrant children. So with that as the backdrop, who is the CYC? The CYC is what we call a nimble intermediary. Now in plain language, what that means is that we bring together residents, public systems, providers, and funders to deliver on our promises to our community. What residents have said that they want for their own children and youth. At the CYC, we lead a suite of evidence-based programs that have been proven to reduce the symptoms of trauma, to treat the trauma that our children, youth, and family have experienced. And all of those programs are either culturally specific for the children, youth, and families we serve, or culturally relevant. We do this because we have a set of core foundational beliefs. Number one, those that experience the trauma are the experts in their own trauma. They know how to make things better in a lot of ways. In order to get that expertise, we have to listen to those residents, right? We need to understand what they need and what they want. And we also always lead with evidence, what's been proven and what works when we talk about programs and strategies. That is what our community, what our residents deserve. So that's kind of the big picture. How do we make that happen every day? As Matt mentioned, what's the playbook? Well, today we're going to talk about 3 approaches we use that really get us to the outcomes we want and need and our communities deserve. First, how do we heal individual children and youth? How do we help them recover from their trauma? Number 2, how do we help unify and strengthen and support our families? And finally, how can we elevate the unheard voices and support our residents, these families' voices in decision-making in our communities? Before we dive into that though, I'd like to introduce Diana Rodriguez. She currently serves as a project manager here at the CYC, but Diana has over a decade of experience supporting these immigrant youth, specifically working with these unaccompanied immigrant youth who have crossed the border without family. Diana, I remember when we first met and I described the services the CYC had available for immigrant families and young people, and you had an overwhelmingly positive reaction. Could you tell us why?
Thanks, Rebecca. I remember how frustrated it was for me to advocate for mental health services for those immigrant youth in the community, especially knowing the extreme trauma and need for services that you immigrants are facing in this country. Connecting with the services CYC provide helped me to advocate and provide the services my immigrant youth needed so badly. They were able to understand the need of those kids and also believe in their culture and the strength of their family, making my work easier and giving me the strength to advocate better for them. So I felt very happy to have those support and that finally I was able to have the tool to really help. Before I was always chasing for pro bono services, but they needed quality clinical services, not just for one child. We really need to make the difference. And the CYC was helping me like navigating and advocating better for all the clients.
Thank you for sharing that, Diana. That moment always stands out for me. And it was that experience you've brought in working with these children and youth and your enthusiasm and passion for that had us bring you on to our team here at the CYC in the past year. So now, Diana, I'm going to ask you to put on your project manager hat here. And I'd ask you to take us through the importance of providing mental health supports to immigrant children who suffer from trauma and why that's so important and impactful.
Of course, the young people that we serve have experienced severe trauma in 3 ways. Most are fleeing violence, have seen horrible things, and are traumatic in their home country. The journey across the U.S. border is also traumatic. Some seek companion, captured for immigration, injury, or worse, die. Many also experience traumatic events once they get to the United States, being placed in detention center or experiencing a lot of violence. So the first priority for us is to help our young people to heal. That means getting them therapy, counseling, and other clinical services. A lot of those young people don't have insurance and don't qualify for any state benefits. So clinical services are out of reach. At the CYC, we connect those youth to clinical services delivered by a Spanish speaker therapy because most of those young people are in school. We place clinicians that those schools themselves so they can access the services. Here in an example, Sylvia is a mom of 2 girls who crossed the border at 5 and 7 because of extreme violence in their home country of Honduras. Once they were reunited with Sylvia, noticed some negative behavior in the oldest child due to the traumatic journey. We were able to have Natalia begin to see a counselor at her elementary school. Sylvia has told me that she was in denial about mental health for her children because she was traumatized. And also she realizes that her own trauma was putting her unable to open up and pursuing services for her own children. Now she understands the importance of her mental health services and how important it is to advocate and to overcome the trauma. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Diana, especially for that wonderful story of Sylvia and her children. I'd like to introduce Jomeli Marte at this point to give us even more of insight into the importance of individual therapeutic services. Jomeli has worked for many years with immigrant adolescents as a teacher, as an advocate, and a support partner. Jomeli, is there a particular student or young person who in your mind really typifies how important it is to provide these mental health services for our unaccompanied immigrant youth?
Hi, Rebecca. Through my years of experience, I have worked and teach many young immigrants, and I have seen firsthand the trauma that my students and my clients go through. I mean, they have to come to a new country, they have to adapt to a new climate, or learn a new language. This is not easy. They also have to deal with separation from their own families and reunite with new family here. That's also very, very difficult. But when I think about one particular student or client, Damari Carrillo come to mind. Damari came from Guatemala. When she came to the United States, she was here by herself. And I remember that for Damari, it was very, very frustrated because she has all these problems. She was living here by herself. There was so much that she needed to talk to, you know, problems in her own country. And she couldn't talk to the counselor at our school because she didn't understand her. So for Damari, that was frustrating. You know, she would come to me and she would confide to me and she would say, I would love to have someone who can understand me when I need to talk to them about my problems. And I remember that through her senior year, she got an internship working in one of her local elementary school. And she was working also with children there that were new to the country. And she would come and she would tell me about her experience there. And she would say, you know, she was kind of proud that she was helping these children, that she was like their mentor. But at the same time, she would say, Miss, I'm so sad and frustrated because these kids, they have problems at home. And when they come to school, that is affecting them at school. But they cannot talk to the counselor there because the counselor do not understand them. So for the Maris, having people who understand her and understand children like her, it was very, very important because she knew that mental health was real and that the trauma is there and these kids need help. Now Damari is attending college. Even though she's an undocumented immigrant, she's attending college. And she always referred to herself as the blessed one. She said in Spanish, soy bendecida. Even though she has this high, you know, opinion of herself, she always come back and say, we need more help. We need people that can help us and that can understand it. So she's one of the students that I always mention when I think about the importance of mental health.
That's wonderful to hear. And we are very privileged to have Damari as part of our resident advisory. As the youngest member, that's a group we're going to talk about at the end of our podcast. But yes, we appreciate that story and elevating the voice of Damari and other unaccompanied immigrant youth like her. As we mentioned in the introduction, the second area we focus on is the family. Diana, could you help us understand why family is so important when we're talking about addressing trauma?
As a Latino, we understand our family are super important, but we are only going to access services that we know are going to be good for our families. Our family are so strong, but given all the trauma they're experiencing, they need unification, restoration, and a network they can turn for support. One of our evidence-based programs is called Familias Unidas, Familias United. This program is especially designed for Latino immigrant families or teenagers. It's a unique because the issues immigrant parents face are unique. Immigrant parents come from a different home culture, face different challenges, and their children are raised in this country. Imagine that you are suddenly raised your teenager child who haven't seen in several years, or you are raising your niece or nephew who you physically met for the first time when they come to this country. Familias Unidas help parents and caretakers strengthen their bond with their teenager and talk about difficult subjects such as substance abuse, risky sexual behavior, and peer pressure. To illustrate one of those, we're going to have one mother that complete Familias Unidas. One of that family was referred from the child welfare. As a graduation, she told me that when she came to the program, she didn't think that she needed because she was attending different programs. She was really overwhelming. But she now realized that other families are also struggling with their teenager. She felt like she was falling as a mother, and she was feeling like she cannot do it by herself. But coming to Familias Unidas, she expressed to us that she recognized that other families were struggling as well, and that she wasn't by herself, and that the problem that she was facing with her own teenager wasn't so big like other family. She learned how to communicate and also how to listen to her daughter. And now she can talk and realize that having support in the community was better for her as a Latino. Let's do what we do best, listening to a mother who has been through this program. Isabel Carrillo is a single mom of two children who recently graduated from our Familias Unidas program. Isabel, what do you think is important to support the whole family?
Familias Unidas me ha ayudado a comunicarme con mis hijos y me dio las herramientas para que haya unión.
Familias Unidas has helped me to communicate with my kids and has given me the tools so that we are united as a family.
Soy madre soltera y tengo dos hijos varones, uno de 19 años y el otro de 13 años.
I am a single mother of two boys. One is 19 years old and the other one is 13 years old.
Mi gran testimonio es que mi hogar era un caos y no tenía comunicación con mis hijos, sobre todo el mayor.
My huge testimonial is that I didn't have good communication with my children, especially with my oldest one.
Era un caos, no tenía comunicación con mis hijos. El gran problema que no me hacía caso y no estaba bien en la escuela.
My house was a chaos. My son didn't listen to me. He didn't pay attention. The biggest problem was that he didn't listen to what I was saying and he wasn't doing well at school.
Me llamaban de la escuela cada rato y temían que no se graduaba. Era imposible hablar con él sobre el sexo, el alcohol y otras cosas importantes para su vida. Y después tuve las reuniones.
It was hard for me. They called me from school all the time to give me complaints about him. It was impossible for me to talk to him about anything, especially issues like sex or stuff like that. So I was afraid that he was not going to graduate from high school.
Y ahora estoy muy feliz y empecé a practicar las herramientas que me enseñaron. Y les cuento que hoy hay comunicación, respeto, amor. Ay, y mi hijo se graduó y ya va para la universidad, está trabajando y los tres somos felices. Gracias, Familias Unidas.
But everything changed after I started going to the meetings. I went to the meetings, I got the tools that I needed to talk to my kids. I had better communication. I'm so happy now in my house. You can see the love that it is between us. We respect each other. thank you, Familias Unidas. Now my son is going to college. He has a job. And it was all thank you to this great program. Thank you.
That is so lovely to hear, Isabel. Thank you for sharing your experience. I know that it's not always easy to talk about some of our difficulties, but your story is truly inspiring. As we see here that our individuals are healing and that our families are growing stronger, we at the CYC believe that their voice is critical to making even broader positive changes in our community. Unfortunately, as Matt mentioned in the beginning, the voices of these children, youth, and families are often unheard for a variety of reasons: immigration status, fear, and other pressures. At the CYC, we've always worked to elevate and amplify our resident priorities. That's taken different forms over the years. Sometimes it's big and broad, sometimes it's more in smaller groups and deeper, but where we've landed most recently is convening a resident advisory. I mentioned this earlier. Our resident advisory is comprised of all Latinos. They're all immigrants, ranging in age from 19 to 60s, from various countries and with various immigration status. And their title is an advisory, but they are really our experts. And they guide us in doing this work in a way that works best for our communities. An example of how this has actually played out is our recent and ongoing COVID pandemic. When the pandemic hit last spring, our Latino population was disproportionately affected, as in many other places. There was a lot of assumptions being made. There was a lot of accusations being made about different communities. But we went to the experts and we asked them, why is this happening and what should we do? And they told us very specifically and very concretely. So then we were able to take action. And we were able to take action as an organization and make some changes, adopt some new practices. But we were also able to use our own communications platform and voice to share that more broadly so that others in the community could act on those as well. Very often, as organizations, we stop with the treatment, we stop with the program. But this is a really, we believe, strong and inspiring example of how the voices and expertise of those that we are serving to mitigate trauma can actually benefit our entire community. I'm going to turn it over to Matt at this point.
So you've heard a lot today, right? A lot in a short amount of time. And this is a fraction of the truth, right? And we're pulling back the curtain. We're just starting to pull back the curtain. And we're not trying to expose things, but we're trying to understand what we need to do and how we need to do it. In the United States, we customize things every day. We customize cars, we customize clothes, we customize homes. And it's beyond time that we think about how to reshape, reimagine, and redesign our services and supports. Services and supports to buoy some of our most vulnerable and newest residents. And we need to listen to these folks because they are the experts. They are the experts of their own experience, and they are the answer, and they hold that key to what we need to do on a much broader scale.
Thanks so much, Matt. I'd really like to thank the whole team at the Children and Youth Cabinet of Rhode Island for your incredible work. I'd also like to thank everyone for joining us for today's conversation. Please join us for future episodes in this series focused on trauma-informed care for unaccompanied immigrant youth. Thank you.